Welcome, everyone. We gather today to remember the life of Robert Abner Phillips, also known as Bob, Grandpa, Pop, and Papa. My name is Reverend Alice King, and I'm leading the service today. Thank you for trusting me to hold this space today as we gather virtually in a way that we probably never imagined that we would need to gather when it came time to say goodbye to Bob. And certainly we did not expect to gather like this again so soon after Betty's death in May. And yet here we are, gathered to mourn Bob's passing and celebrate his life. This pandemic is forcing us to be creative in ways that we gather, the ways that we grieve, the ways that we say goodbye. Today we gather online rather than in person, and that itself is an act of communal care, staying apart in order that the more of the vulnerable among us may stay safer. And it's still hard. It's hard to see each other on a screen rather than in person, hard to be together virtually, unable to hug or hold each other as we share our memories of Bob Phillips. And the technology may be awkward at times. Glitches may happen, screens may freeze up, but we still gather, knowing that remembering that saying goodbye is all part of the already messy process of grief and loss. Knowing that your love for Bob will come through across the pixels and Wi-Fi connections and space between us. Know that this time, here together on a video conference software many of you might not have even heard of before a few months ago, is sacred. It matters. So welcome. I look forward to remembering Bob with you here today. Before we begin, I want to share some basic guidance on using Zoom to make it easier for us. There are video layout options, and if you are on a desktop computer, you can look in the upper right hand and you'll see either speaker view or gallery view. And if you click on that, it will change the view. If you click when it says speaker view, you'll see only the person speaking. And if you click when it says gallery view, you'll see a bunch of little boxes on your screen. From time to time, we will be spotlighting videos so that you can see the person who's talking. The gallery view feels more like being gathered together, but the speaker view gives a larger picture of the person in the moment. So I like that when I want to focus on a person who's talking. If you're on a mobile device, you should be able to access gallery view by swiping left on your screen, swiping left on your screen. So I'm going to give you a moment to adjust that to your preference if you're unfamiliar with it. And it's good to see all your faces. And I hope that you receive the order of service for today in the invitation to the service. And I invite you now to take a breath and to let all the busyness of before this time fade away, and to let everything that would come after to let that go, and to just be here in this present moment, breathing, knowing where your body is in the space, and allowing our hearts to open. We begin this service with light that reminds us of the spark of Bob's life. You've all been invited to bring a candle to light wherever you are. I have mine here, and I invite you now to do the same. I don't know if you know how beautiful that looks, but if you're not on gallery view, you might want to look at all that candle flame. In our time of grief, we light this flame of sharing, this flame of ongoing life. In this time when we search for understanding and serenity in the face of loss, we light this sign of our quest for truth and meaning and community. As we journey through this service, may this light remind you of the light, warmth, and joy Bob brought to each of your lives. May the dancing of the flame remind you of the way he moved through life. And may it spark your own memories of Bob today. And let us join now. I will lead the Lord's Prayer, and I invite you to say that along at home. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Bob Phillips was born Robert Abner Phillips Jr. on October 3rd, 1929, in Ashland, Alabama. Born to Robert Abner and Lillian Byrne Martin Phillips, he became the older brother to two sisters, Martha Jane and Geraldine, known as Jerry. Bob spent most of the first 6 years of his young life in Fairfield Highlands, Alabama. He was first taught at home by his mother, and then entered second grade elementary school at 6 years of age. When he was 6 years old, just a few months shy of age 7, his father died of heart problems. His mother then moved with 6-year-old Bob, 3-year-old Martha Jane, and 1-year-old Jerry back to Ashland to be near her parents. Bob was an involved high school student. He played football, participated in Future Farmers of America, was the sports editor for the yearbook, excelled in math, and graduated from Clay County High School in 1946. Bob wanted to attend the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, and one of the prerequisites was that he must attend the Marion Military Institute in Marion, Alabama, to meet the entrance requirements for the Naval Academy. It was during that time, at a dance arranged for the new cadets to meet some of the young women in town, that he looked up at the staircase and saw Betty Jane Boozer. Each young woman would be paired with a cadet when they arrived at the bottom of the stairs. And when Bob saw that tall, attractive brunette, he maneuvered himself to be the cadet greeting Betty when she arrived at that last step. Bob and Betty were married on June 15, 1952. Valerie arrived the next year, followed by Bobby 17 months later, and then Daniel in another 2.5 years. Commander Phillips' 24-year U.S. Navy career as an aviator included more than 13 years at sea and foreign service. 2 tours in Vietnam, 2 in the Mediterranean, and 2 in Italy. He finished his Navy career at the Pentagon as the Naval Training, Planning, and Program Officer. He received numerous commendations and retired in 1976 to pursue a second career with the American Healthcare Association. For 18 more years, he served as the Director of Financial Support Services and transformed the management operation from paper-based accounting to first-class technology. Bob retired again in 1996 to help Betty with her real estate business, to be with family, and to establish Winding Brook Farm in Gordonsville, Virginia. For this man who enjoyed hunting and fishing, gardening and farming, music, dancing, playing bridge and chess, and watching football, go Navy, roll Tide. For this man who enjoyed family, good food, good drink, hosting large gatherings and cooking with Betty, the farm was home. He is remembered as a man who dreamed big and thought creatively, as having skill with carpentry and electrical work, as a person who enjoyed having a project going, at least one. He was charming, romantic, and affectionate. He was a teacher. One of his last lessons was teaching Valerie how to mow at the farm using the John Deere tractor. And when she came in, he said, "So, what did you learn?" He believed in taking times to do things right the first time. He was patient and accepting with a good sense of humor. He was thoughtful and very kind. After Betty died in May, Bob had a couple of hospital stays and trouble with his heart and with his breathing. At the hospital for the last time on Tuesday before he died, Bob said he was ready to go, to be with Betty, to go home. The children readied the house to bring him home for however long he could be with them. He arrived home around 4:30 on Wednesday, August 26. His children were there, Val and Dan and Bob, and daughters-in-law Kelly and Stacy. He took a nap, and at one point he asked his children, "How long is this going to take?" He was home for just 4 hours. And then while sitting at the kitchen table, the table where he and Betty sat together for all those years, and the table where Betty was sitting just a few months earlier when she passed, Bob Phillips took his last breath. His ashes will be interred along with his beloved Betty's in Arlington National Cemetery. No one person can know all that there is to know about another person. We each experience them in our own way, and there are many stories and experiences to share of Robert Abner Phillips, brother, uncle, dad, papa, pop, grandpa, and now we share those. Savannah Kaiser will share a memory memories now from Mary Bowler, who was Bob's first cousin.
Hi, everyone. I'm Savannah Kaiser. I am one of the grandchildren of Bob and Betty Phillips and one of the 5 kids of Valerie Kaiser. This first memory is written by Mary Bowler, as Alice said, Bob's first cousin. As some of you may know, Bob stayed with us one summer while Aunt Lillian, Bob's mother, was getting her master's degree so she could earn a bit more money and a job as a teacher. He was able to get a summer job at my Uncle Bill Powell's lumber yard. He rode my bicycle. It was a girl's bike and the only one I ever had, to and from work. I remember my mother, Bob's Aunt Sarah, commenting that he did not spend any of his money on himself that summer, and she wondered what he was saving it for. When he went home, we quickly learned what he was saving that money for. He purchased a wood or coal burning heater that was located in the room next to the kitchen in Aunt Lillian's house and the room they all stayed in during cold weather. He was caring, unselfish, and kind, even as a very young man. I loved and admired him and was proud to be his cousin. This next reading is by Jerry McLean, one of Bob's 2 younger sisters. Bob was many things to many people: a high school athlete, naval aviator, an outdoorsman, and a financial executive. To me, he was my big brother. When we were younger, walking to school, Bob would cup his hands around mine, warming them by blowing on them. He walked with me down the aisle on my wedding day. He was dressed in an officer's summer white Navy uniform. I was dressed as the bride in the lacy white dress graciously borrowed from his wife, who had worn it in their wedding the previous summer. In his early years, Bob hunted in the woods not far from our house. The occasional rabbit or squirrel he caught would make a delicious breakfast at our table. I'll miss his voice on the other end of the line.
And now, Pat Miller, one of Bob's sisters-in-law, has memories to share. You'll need to unmute yourself, Pat.
Am I unmuted?
You got it. Go ahead.
Okay. Bob Phillips, my brother-in-law. Bob came into my life when I was around 5 years old, and he began dating my sister Betty. Over the next 5 or 6 years, they dated, became engaged, and were married upon his graduation from the Naval Academy. For the next 24 years of Navy life, they traveled extensively, had their 3 children, and in the meantime, I grew up, married Bill, and we had 3 children. We became reacquainted with Bob and Betty and their kids in 1972 when IBM transferred Bill to Gaithersburg. By then, Bob had stopped flying and he was assigned to the Pentagon. He and Betty were living in Springfield, and they helped us settle into the area. That year began our tradition of celebrating holidays together. As time went by, our 2 families became so close. Sharing family gatherings at their home in Springfield, our home in Gaithersburg and in Warrington, and then at their Winding Brook farm in Gordonsville. Over the last 48 years, can't believe it was 48, we shared many outings, celebrations, weddings, birthdays, and some funerals. Happy or sad, we were always there for each other. So many precious memories. Today, I and my siblings and our spouses are in the 4th quarter of our lives, as my brother Johnny says. Betty has passed, and now Bob has joined her, leaving big holes in our hearts, and reminded me of that Willie Nelson lyric, "It's not something you get over, it's something you get through." And we will, with God's help. Though this seems a final chapter in our family life, I know there'll be many more fabulous chapters to come in this ever-growing big family of ours. Feeling so blessed to have had Bob for so long.
Thank you, Pat. And now Bob's daughter, Valerie, has memories to share.
Being deeply loved gives you strength. Loving deeply gives you courage. Words of Lao Tzu. I am Bob's daughter, Valerie, and so much like him in many ways. The way I think, my mathematics ability, my nonstop new project ideas, and the way I have the urge to alphabetize my spices. You already know how amazing my father was, but Pop had some special hidden talents that you may not have heard about before. So let me enlighten you at once. Did you know that he had a rabbit in his arm? Or so we kids thought for a long time. He could make his bicep muscle jump in such a way that he had Bobby and me convinced there was a rabbit in there. Pop could fix a little girl's hair. When I was a toddler of 2 and 3, I would bring him assorted small rubber bands and a brush and sit before him on the floor, and he would make pigtails. one on the top of my head and matching pigtails for the sides. My eyes would water as he brushed and pulled my brunette locks to make each pigtail so smooth and tight that I felt my eyebrows being pulled up to my hairline. Soon enough, I outgrew the pigtails, but his hair fixin' talent was again called into action when I was 7. Mom decided to give me a home permanent in our Oxon Hill, Maryland duplex where we lived for 7 months. She was having trouble with the sheer sheets of paper to hold the damp hair sections, to then wrap each section around the rigid, pale pink rods. Mom called out to Pop, and he suddenly appeared in the kitchen doorway and took over. Lickety-split, he had all of my hair in neat rows of tightly wrapped pale pink rods. And once again, I could feel my eyebrows being pulled up to my hairline. Pop was all about adventure, music, and laughter. He was bigger than life itself, soaring to the skies each day as he flew planes and jets. And at home, he was our Pop. He loved music, bringing the latest trends into our lives. Each night, we marched and stepped to the music in our living room while Mom made dinner. He carried baby Daniel, and Bobby and I followed him around the living room, stepping to the beat of the music. Sometimes Pop and I danced together, with my 6-year-old feet resting on his as we foxtrotted around the room. We carried this nightly tradition that we started in Milton, Florida, to our small home in Oxon Hill, Maryland. One day, he brought home the Chubby Checker Twist album that was all the rage, and we soon were twisting energetically, happy to follow the latest trend. He even took Mom to the Peppermint Lounge in New York City, sometime after we tried to teach her to twist. It was a sight as Pop wrapped a large bath towel around Mom's hips to help her twist back and forth to, "Come on, baby, let's do the twist." Family dinners were lively with conversation after a delicious meal that Mom prepared and presented on a beautifully set table, quite often with candlelight. Bobby, Dan, and I were amazed when Pop would pass his hand through the candle flames at the end of dinner and then extinguish each candle with damp fingers. He was magical and our Superman. Pop always encouraged me in my pursuits, and I was pretty athletic and loved to play sports constantly. At age 9, I was after Pop to play catch with me in our San Diego front yard. Without gloves, we played catch with a softball, and I would have played for hours on end. He would never tell me enough. So he very cleverly started throwing the ball harder and harder. And I continued to catch each throw until I finally said, "Okay, Pop, may we stop now?" My hand was bruised from catching the ball, but I loved playing catch with Pop. Pop was a Santa Claus and loved giving special gifts to Mom and us kids. When he returned from the many months at sea, he would be laden with gifts of pearls, cashmere sweater sets, perfume, Japanese dolls, and my prized reel-to-reel tape deck. I was able to record all of my record albums to take my music with me when I attended Munich American High School as a 7-day dormie from Gaeta, Italy. Memories are still fresh of joyously reuniting. With anticipation and excitement, we waited on the Alameda, California dock as the ship pulled in. Our eyes searched for our Pop through a sea of navy dress blue uniforms. Mom could always find him. He would take off his hat and wave it back and forth. She would track him as he disembarked. She knew his walk, and as soon as I could tell it was him, I would break away and run to him, jumping into his arms for the long-awaited hug and the familiar smell of his uniform, laced with a hint of Brasso. Memories are still fresh of painful and reluctant goodbyes. When he was the CO of the squadron, we drove him to Cecil Field in Orange Park, Florida, where he was to fly his Skyhawk jet out to the aircraft carrier. When we parted, he said, "Look for me in the West when you get home." We parked our burgundy Pontiac Star Chief in the garage and immediately heard the unmistakable sound of military jets. Onto the driveway we scurried just in time to see the jets approaching in a low trajectory with Pop in the lead, his wingman in perfect formation behind him and to the side, both jets swooping in unison down together over our home and upward, continuing their flight to the Atlantic Ocean. My heart followed him there from stardust. And now the purple dusk of twilight time steals across the meadows of my heart. High up in the sky, the little stars climb, always reminding me that we're apart. I am Bob's daughter, Valerie, and so much like him in many ways.
So here's some stories from the grandchildren now, beginning with James Flanagan, who's Valerie's son.
Ended up at Boyd Court yesterday, where most of my first memories of Grandpa come from. The house pretty much still looks the same. Shed's still out back. Grandma's rose bushes are out front that Grandpa used to help her prune. Some of you might remember that I lived with Grandma and Grandpa in the house in Springfield a few times while I was growing up. The time that I spent in Springfield with Grandpa really allowed me to know the man that he was and helped me realize the type of man that I wanted to become. I did not quite understand how much influence he would have over who I would become back then, but I am incredibly grateful I was able to spend those times with him and Grandma. Grandpa was dedicated to Grandma and the greatest love of his life. He lived, breathed, and did everything possible to support, love, and cherish her every single day of his life. His dedication to her extended into the love he had for all of his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. He was always ready to listen to the newest accomplishment or challenge and regularly shared how sincerely proud he was of every single one of us. He taught me that being dedicated to my own growth, personally and professionally, would never serve me wrong. That being dedicated in support of my own family was the absolute best way to teach my children to do the same for their own families and others. Patience. Grandpa had so much of it. I remember him teaching me to drive his maroon Blazer, teaching me not to rev the engine too high before shifting. He also taught me about not overdriving the headlights and to take care of my car so it would last. He was patient when I would get in trouble at school, when I would need a last-minute ride to a friend's house, or simply when I was behaving like a teenager. He allowed me to make my own impatient decisions, which means a lot of mistakes, and I never felt like he judged me for those mistakes. He would help me pick up the pieces and get me set to move forward or try again. Grandpa was dedicated to his country. He served the United States Navy with immense pride and honor, piloted their planes, commanded squadrons, and taught others to lead by example. He lived by the motto, Semper Fortis, always courageous. He was the epitome of a courageous leader. He confronted reality head-on, looked for feedback, and listened. Said what needed to be said, encouraged pushback, communicated openly, led change, made decisions and moved forward, gave credit to others, and held himself and others accountable. There are many, many thoughts and memories that come to mind when reflecting on Grandpa, his life, and his impact on my own life. Grandpa is the best man that I have ever known. I am so grateful to have known him not only as a child, but also as an adult with my own family. I am only comforted knowing that he is with Grandma now and that they are together as they should be.
And now Laura Phillips remembers her grandfather, and she is Dan's daughter.
My memory of Grandpa is one of a quiet man. He did not seem to feel the need to fill the silences, but when he did speak, he chose his words wisely, and you'd be wise to listen. He spoke up for his family, his convictions, and his country. Not always serious, though. He had a sense of humor for sure. I remember one birthday lunch with Grandma and Grandpa when I made a comment about being a liberal social worker. Well, you can only imagine his reaction. Grandpa and I could hardly have more opposite views on more topics, and yet it did not matter. I knew that he loved me and he was proud of me. My most treasured memory of Grandpa was at my college graduation. I was being honored at a ceremony before the actual graduation. Before they called up each of us, the families were told to hold your applause to the end, please. I heard my name and stood up in the small and silent room. In that same moment, Grandpa erupted in applause and cheers, and I was only slightly embarrassed. It never fails to make me smile to remember that moment when Grandpa was anything but silent. When I think of Grandpa, I remember his tight hugs and his big heart. When I think of how I want to remember and honor Grandpa, I know that he would want me to share more of my heart with the ones that I love. Thank you.
And Savannah, Valerie's daughter Savannah, wrote some things that James will share.
Grandpa wasn't a man of many words, but when he would speak, you listened. Growing up, she always admired that Grandpa enjoyed being in the kitchen with Grandma, because men can cook too and can enjoy it. It is not just women's work. Just specifically, the first Savannah ever ate the first time Savannah ever ate salted cantaloupe or creme brulee was with Grandpa. Grandpa had a little blowtorch to crystallize the sugar on top of the vanilla custard. She remembers Grandma gently teasing Grandpa over his excitement using such a fiery tool. On one occasion, Grandma and Grandpa hosted Savannah's Girl Scout troop at the farm. Grandpa came down to the lake and helped every single girl catch a fish. One time, while Grandma and Grandpa were taking care of Savannah and Ben asked Grandpa how to short sheet a bed, and Grandpa showed him exactly how using a dinner napkin. No questions asked. Unfortunately for Savannah, she was the one affected by Ben's newly learned skill.
And now we hear from Jody Phillips, who is Bobby's daughter. I am not hearing you, Jody. Does that mean you're muted?
I think you might have highlighted Laura again instead.
No. Oh, let me find Jody. There you go.
Okay, all right. So can everybody hear me now?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you're good.
Okay. Whew. Everybody's already pretty much stated my first line about Grandpa being a man of very few words, so I'll skip that part. Because he really was. He was always sitting back and kind of taking in the moment. I have many fond memories, fond early memories, honestly, like getting to snuff out the candles at the holidays, weekends at the cabin, dinners and birthday lunches, car rides where we would look out for hawks, 4th of July's, and that time he convinced Grandma I needed the 2 pairs of shoes instead of 1 because he only turned 15 once. And all those moments as an adult, we spent listening and watching as Grandpa sat back to take it all in with that familiar tisk that he would make every time Grandma would tell a story. I've thought a lot about this man over the years, as I'm sure we all have, and the life that he has lived, usually as it was told by my grandma, my late grandmother. It's really so hard to put into words what he really meant to our family, what he really brought. Without sorting out his place in line, all those years ago to make sure our grandma would be the one that he would get to dance with, none of us would be here. Grandma always had so many stories to tell, but you could tell all of those adventures always started with a thought or a dream or an idea that himself had. A dreamer. That's really what he was. And sometimes a troublemaker too, if the stories, of course, are true. And stubborn to the core, a value I've inherited, and honestly, a lot of you have too. Distinctly on one occasion, I recall Grandpa claiming that all foods could be eaten with a fork and a knife. Never the ones to take things at face value One of my brothers, I forget which, challenged Grandpa by saying, "Even a sandwich? Even chips?" As during this conversation, we were enjoying lunch at the dining room table. Grandpa, never the one to back down from a challenge, proceeded completely unfazed and 100% straight-faced to eat his ruffled legs with a fork. Grandpa was a man full of passion and a deep love for his country, which he honored by serving in the Navy Air Force, where he flew hundreds of successful missions. After years of sacrifice by his family and himself, he retired, but he didn't stop dreaming. He pursued a second career as an accountant, even though it meant he had to go back to school. And even in retirement, Grandpa had dreams, aspirations, and goals. Never was he idle or lacking in desire for an adventure in life. Grandpa was sure to always be the one to tell you he was proud of you and excitedly want to hear about your latest adventure in life. Life, of course, was his greatest adventure. But all of those things and dreams he had, his family was at the core. Grandpa loved his family, and he loved even more watching his family live their lives, chase their dreams, take risks, and I lost my place. Challenge themselves in new ways. Be it raising a family, starting a new career, taking new risks and challenging, starting a new career, buying a new home, or moving to a new state. Lord help me. Grandpa was there cheering you on along the way. Grandpa had a true zest for living life to its absolute fullest, loving hard, working harder, never leaving a job half done or not done to the absolute best of your ability. He was diligent and hardworking, passionate about life and love and family. He was patient and knew the value of a well-calculated risk. Grandpa has taught generations of children about patriotism, hard work, discipline, honor, and how to have a daggone good time. To truly honor him and his legacy would be to take that risk, try something new, dream big, work hard, but above all, enjoy the little things in life, and then sit back and quietly admire and appreciate it all with a full belly, a glass of wine, and the love of your life, recounting it all.
Thank you, Jody. And now the son-in-law, Bruce, Valerie's husband, has some memories to share.
I'm Bruce Kaiser. I'm Bruce Kaiser, and as Reverend Alice pointed out, I'm the son-in-law. I married into this family in 1989. Around that time, Pop and Dan invited me to join in with them in their yearly hunting traditions, deer being the primary quarry. I'm open to new things and wanted to acquire a deeper appreciation of my wife's family's customs. I gladly accepted their invitation. Since then, we had done many of hunting outings, hunting days, if you will, to the point now where we pretty much have grown past that. But in all those years hunting, never did I get a deer. As a matter of fact, I think every time I went out in a hunting party, we never did get a deer. I think you can come to the conclusion that deer are fairly safe in the woods with me out there. Not a problem. But I always enjoyed it. Being outside with my in-laws on a late fall or early winter afternoon was very therapeutic, to say the least. About the only times I could really complain is when we were dealing with some wet snow, and had that wet snow change to rain as the day wore on. But we even weathered that, no pun intended. Early in the afternoon of one of our hunting days, we gave way to the inevitable and decided to forego hunting deer and focus our time and efforts on hunting squirrels. We each armed ourselves with a rifle, went off in separate directions. A couple hours later, we all arrived back at Pop's 4x4, each one of us with a deceased squirrel. Now, there are moments in your life when you know exactly what's going to happen next. And I truly nailed it. Pop looked at Dan, and then they both looked at me. Pop had a gleam in his eye and a rascally smile on his face and said something like, "Bruce, you can have the honor of taking these squirrels and cooking them up for dinner." I don't remember what I said at that point. I don't think "thank you" came out of my mouth, but I do know what I was thinking. But we'll move on from there. So I went back to Northern Virginia with these 3 squirrels in tow, I guess. Not in tow, but in the cooler. And get home and get these squirrels ready to be cooked. Now, this was a new experience for me. Took those squirrels down into the unfinished part of the basement and began to clean them, just as Pop had told me to do. It was a messy experience and a very odoriferous experience, as not one corner of the house escaped unscathed from the gamey odor that these critters let off. But we got through it and got ready for the next night when we were going to eat these squirrels. We quickly got the squirrels out of the fridge the next evening, put them in the oven with a bunch of barbecue sauce, hopefully enough that would knock out any hint of a taste that we might not like, and proceeded to dig in. Let's just say that the meal ended pretty soon, pretty early, and it was an experience we decided we just didn't want to repeat again in the future. But memory has a funny way about it, and this memory, well, it comes back to me every year. Every year, getting close to around this time, when the days start to cool down, the nice, cool, crisp autumn days, I find myself back in the woods with Pop and Dan. Pop dressed in blaze orange and camouflage, cradling a rifle and looking at me with a twinkle in his eyes and a never-ending mischievous smile on his face. And that is something that I will never, ever forget. Thanks, Pop, for the memories. Thanks a lot.
Here's an essay that Susan Stigler Johnson wrote that I will read. Winding Brook Farm was carved out of the Virginia countryside. It was created by Bob and Betty Phillips, who came to this woodland and made it their forever home. Once, Bob was asked why they didn't find a farm that was already established, one that would have been easy and ready to receive the items they had gathered through the years of their lives and experiences. And he replied that had they chosen the easy way, then the farm would not have been theirs. He did not want their lives to be someone else's plan, someone else's dream. Bob was a dreamer. He dreamed big and was willing to take the risk to make his dreams reality. Bob believed in life. He believed that he could fly over a vast ocean and touch down on an aircraft carrier that was only a glimmer of reflected light. Bob believed in family. He knew what it meant to love and protect family. He learned this when he was a 6-year-old boy. His father died that year, and Bob's mother was left a widow with 3 young children. Times were very hard for the family, and by age 8, this young man hunted in the Alabama forest and on Alabama fields to help his mother provide food for the Phillips table. His mother was a creative cook and managed to prepare whatever he brought home. Bob believed in his wife, Betty, whom he cherished. In his eyes, she was always the 17-year-old girl he met at a dance. He believed in his children, Valerie, Bob, and Daniel. He was a wise father, knowing when to hold on and when to let them go, each one free to live a life of choice. Bob believed that anything was possible. The sky was the limit, and he knew this firsthand. He experienced the world from 35,000 feet, respecting the limits of a Skyhawk jet. Even when his toes touched the line, he had the ability to assess risk and to balance that risk with his duties and responsibilities. Bob never let anyone down. A man of integrity, he personified his philosophy, do what you say you will do. We could count on him without disappointment. Bob had a favorite spot by the kitchen table. It was from this vantage point that he observed his large family do family things. Bob was a man of few words. However, his children are never at a loss for words, and this trait seems to have been passed down to their children and their children and their children's children. So gatherings at Winding Brook were usually loud and chaotic. As the family grew, so did the celebrations. Bob and Betty knew how to throw parties. They were partners in the kitchen. It was their kind of place. Holiday meals were always preceded by a toast. Once everyone was quiet, glasses were held high, and Bob reminded us of the many blessings that were his and ours. And when he finished, we knew that we were valued. There are so many images that whisper to us now. Bob taking his young bride on a whirlwind tour of life. Bob in his Navy uniform as he served his country so well. Bob feeding the bluebirds that were not to be seen in the trees surrounding Winding Brook until he showed up with the mealworms. Bob using one tractor to pull the other tractor that was mired up out of a muddy spot. Bob tending his garden. Bob supervising the fireworks on Independence Day. And Bob kneeling before the hearth, building a fire to keep us warm on cold Virginia nights. Bob's gentle hands holding a soft gray kitten and shooting mistletoe out of Alabama trees to decorate Christmas mantles. All our lives, these images and the ones each of us holds dear, make us forever grateful that he shared this life with us. And we will be sustained by his courage and support. There is a poem by E. E. Cummings in which 4 children go down to the sea, and under a bright sky and by the churning waters, they find themselves each answering the age-old question, who am I? It takes a lifetime to answer this question, for however long that lifetime may be. Robert Abner Phillips Jr. had over 90 years walking by the churning waters of life, and in the end, the answer to his question was that he was a country boy who grew into a man wearing red suspenders, returning to the land after traveling around the world, living each day by his own terms, and now he has returned to his Creator. We can be at peace with the knowledge that he was greeted with these words, well done, well done. Thank you, Susan. One of Bob and Betty's couple songs was Stardust. And now the purple dusk of twilight time steals across the meadows of my heart. High up in the sky, the little stars climb, always reminding me that we're apart. You wandered down the lane and far away, leaving me a song that will not die. Love is now the stardust of yesterday, the music of the years gone by. Sometimes I wonder how I spend the lonely night, dreaming of a song. The melody haunts my reverie, and I am once again with you. When our love was new and each kiss an inspiration, but that was long ago. And now my consolation is in the stardust of a song. Beside the garden wall, when stars are bright, you are in my arms. The nightingale tells his fairy tale of paradise where roses grew. Though I dream in vain, in my heart, it always will remain, my stardust melody, a memory of love's refrain. There were 2 chairs, you saw them in the picture, that were on the other side of the lake at Winding Brook Farm. And Betty and Bob would get over to those chairs and sit there and look back across the lake toward the house. Betty wanted a cherry tree there, and so one was planted. On July 18th, Valerie, took a picture of that tree and sent that in a text to Bob. On August 26th, a few moments after Bob died, his little jitterbug phone buzzed. And when the kids looked at the phone, it was a text, the picture that Valerie had sent him of that cherry tree that he could see from that kitchen table. The chairs across the lake are now physically empty, as their spirits are free to be together once more, as the stardust from which they came and to which they have returned. But perhaps they are there, sitting together in those chairs, looking across the lake at the farm, watching all the goings on with great enjoyment. They live on in all of you. And Kelly has a prayer to share.
Hi, I'm Kelly, Bobby's wife, and I would like to read the cowboy prayer that Pop shared on Thanksgiving several years ago. Dear Lord, when the sun rose on this September morn, I have thanks to you that I was born in a land and on the land where I am free to say that I can live my life out here and live the cowboy way. Just let me live my life as I've begun and give me work that's open to the sky. Make me a partner of the wind and sun, and I won't ask a life that's soft and high. When I'm checking cattle in the rain or fencing in the snow, I may forget to thank you, Lord, but you are there and show me what to be thankful for. Like a rainbow in the blue sky after the storm has passed, or even ducks busting through. Summer's warmth, autumn's colors, powdery snow, the first green grass of spring. Deer out grazing and the hawks taking wing. And I thank you for my family, my children, and my wife. I thank you that we can raise them to live the cowboy life. I thank you for the years we've had and for whatever lies ahead. Just keep an eye on all that's done and said. Just write me sometimes when I turn aside and guide my soul on the heavenly trail that stretches ever upward toward the great divide.
Thank you, Kelly. And so let us pause now to be still, to breathe in each moment of life with a sense of gratitude for its gifts of beauty, love, and grace. Let us pause to affirm the cycles of life and of death, for we know that we are all part of an endless and mysterious cycle of existence. There is pain and loss in these days, and so we pause before the mystery of life and death to hold in our hearts all of us who grieve this loss. May you be lifted on wings of love and hope and receive a balm of healing. Where there lingers any misunderstanding, alienation, or regret, we ask for the healing of forgiveness. Where there has been warmth and love, we evoke the healing power of gratitude. May those who love Bob deeply know that he loved them in return. We give thanks for Bob and for his light in this world, as we give thanks for the light of love that persists through death and lives in human hearts. All of this we offer as our common prayer. We say goodbye now to Robert Abner Phillips, Jr., brother, father, uncle, grandfather, cousin, and friend. Even as we hold on to the memories, we release his body and his spirit into the mystery. Thank you all for being here to celebrate this life. Go in love and peace. Blessed be, and amen. And now, please ready your glasses for a toast to Bob. We'll give you a couple minutes to get that ready, and the toast will be offered by Dan. I think whenever you're ready, Dan.
Can you all see me or hear me?
We can see you and hear you.
Okay, good. The picture here is of me fixing my hair, so I was a little confused. I prepared remarks, and everyone stole my remarks. So thank you very much for that. I'd also like your indulgence when I say, wow. Such a remarkable man my father was. Lovingly Pop. Unbelievable. The pouring of love today was just amazing. We could all wish on this day, one day when we all go, that we have a similar experience for our loved ones who stay behind. He was teaching me all the way up to his final hours. Unbelievable. He was so gracious in how he handled everything. An amazingly brave man, amazing. To be with him, holding him in his final moments with my loved ones with me. It's speechless is what it is, it's speechless. And now he's with his beloved Betty Jane. And it occurs to me that he may be one of the only who called her Betty Jane. Boy, talk about love. And the conversations we had when we were here helping him, his love for her was unbelievable. And I wish I were standing, like at a wedding or something like that. I'm sitting, but I'm prepared, and I hope everyone else is. So to Pop, a remarkable man who has left such a positive impact on so many people, he will be remembered well by all. Thank you, Pop. Thank you.
And we're going to play the beginning montage again for those of you who missed it. And thank you all so much. And Beth, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.